All right, let's go ahead and call F&A to order. If city clerk will note attendance, we'll move on with the approval of the agenda. Are there any revisions or comments in regards to the agenda? Any, yeah, we'll have an addition of, don't see that on here unless we intend to have the resolution 1693. Why don't we, after the Snoqualmie Police Association collective bargaining agreement, let's get into discussion of resolution 1693 and then get into council audiovisual. Okay, everybody's okay with that? We'll move that as amendment to the agenda. All right, here are no objections. That's the agenda as amended. With that, we'll move into public comments. Is there anyone in chambers wishing to make comment before the committee? Please be advised for anyone that may be online. Comments can be submitted to city clerk or submitted to city council directly through email. And we'll get them that way. But at this stage, we are not taking online public comment. Okay. Seeing no hands in council chambers, we'll go ahead and move on with the agenda. First item up being the approval of the minutes dated July 2nd, 2024. Are there any questions or revisions in regards to those minutes? Okay. Any objections to accepting the minutes as presented? All right. If not, those minutes as presented are accepted. Let's move on to consideration claims report dated July 22nd, 2024. Chair has no questions or comments based on review, nor have I received any in email. Are there any questions or clarifications sought by committee? Okay. Any objections to accepting the claims report as presented? All right, with that, we will accept the claims report as presented. Moving on to council. With that, let's move on to Agenda Bill AB 24085, Snoqualmie Police Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. Who will talk this for us?
You have the Drew and Mike show. So as you're aware, we've been negotiating with the police guild for the last 7 or 8 months. And we have reached a tentative agreement on a contract. Drew will give you the nitty-gritty details of the contract.
So good evening, council. Happy to be here this evening with you. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment to get into this. So really, just to provide you with some of the highlights, there are really kind of big 5 major highlights, I think, overall with this contract, with really the first 2 being the most important overall. And those highlights are COLA increases between 2024 and 2026. For 2024, the tentative agreement is for 8% COLA increase. For 2025, it would be a range between 1 to 3.5%, depending on the CPIW for June to June, plus 1% on top of that. And then in addition, for 2026, the tentative agreement includes a 3.5% COLA. The other kind of massive important change to this agreement is moving to a 12-hour shift schedule overall that would be effective January 1 of 2025. It would replace the 10-hour shift schedule plus 2 hours of mandatory overtime, which we've had in place for roughly 4 years or so at this point. And it's been really critical for us to be able to staff up the department, make sure that we can provide the level of service necessary to the community overall. Some of the more minor or important, but still a little bit less important changes overall includes educational pay, incentive pay, which would be paid at a percentage of the employee's base rate of pay instead of a flat monthly amount for the number of college years earned. In terms of longevity pay, we would add another row to that table. It would add an increase in longevity pay for those employees who have worked for the city of Snoqualmie for more than 20 years. And they would receive, if they were here more than 20 years, 8% on top of their base rate. And then in addition to that, holiday pay, which would be effective on January 1 of 2025 as well. Employees required to work a shift that begins on a designated holiday will be paid at time and a half for the entire shift. So it's also a change associated with this. In terms of the cost, the staff is asking for an appropriation increase, which will come back in a future budget amendment overall of roughly $176,000 for this biennium, the 23-24 biennium, primarily to reflect that COLA increase that we're seeing for 2024. Appears I'm not sharing my screen this
You're
entire time. So I went into presentation mode instead of going into sharing my screen. So overall, this is the highlighted slide that you guys missed as part of that entire conversation. And those bullet points right there. But the administration is going to be asking for an additional $176,000 to cover this 2-year biennium. When the change in the shift schedule goes into place, it's actually going to help to ameliorate some of the increases that you're going to see from the COLA increases over time and bring us back into alignment with the budget and forecast that we've currently constructed and have shown council fairly recently back in April at this point. And ideally, we're going to be moving that same sort of trajectory. So you're not going to see that linear slope increase greater relative to what we've already presented in our financial forecast moving forward. Just to go over a few of those kind of charts a little bit for everyone here. The question that we're asking ourselves is how much more would both cities spend relative to what has been budgeted and forecasted? And this is a chart that reflects wages and benefits for SBA members only. The red dashed line that you see here is what we've budgeted and forecasted between 24 and 26. The green line is the agreed proposal, but the minimum amount. So if you recall, there's a COLA range for 2025, and we just wanted to make sure that we accounted for what that range kind of looks like moving forward. And then the blue line here is what the agreed proposal would look like if there's a max. Now I've also have a slashed thing here where it's the max, but also the prediction. We're so close to figuring out what that June to June is. We'll probably know in August or September at some point. It's been trending to be higher than it is lower. So we're likely going to see 3.5% plus 1% on top of that for 2025. So roughly 4.5%. And so with that said, you can kind of see that the blue line, what our prediction is for 25 and 26, pretty much kind of agrees with what we've budgeted and forecasted for both cities combined. Now, if you were to just consider the city of Snoqualmie alone, slightly less than what we budgeted for forecasted. And then if you were to consider the city of North Bend, which is what the next chart is going to show, slightly higher. So that's kind of reflective of how much overtime has been spent from the city of Snoqualmie from generally our revenue sources as opposed to the fee that we receive from the city of North Bend over time. And so that's our prediction of moving forward of what this contract will do overall. While there are significant COLA increases included as a part of this, we do think it's certainly a win for the administration to be able to move to a 12-hour shift schedule away from our kind of 10-hour shift schedule plus 2 hours of mandatory overtime with the other changes associated with this. And as council will recall, this is what we're proposing and would welcome any feedback that you have. Thank you for your time.
Any questions, comments from committee?
You ran through it yesterday.
I mean, all in all, it's a pretty fair contract and we've done some structural changes to help both sides here. So I think it's a pretty good agreement.
Well, thanks to the hard work of the administration and our HR manager as well, and the police chief, yeah, for their hard effort behind the scenes on this. So,
And the police associations.
And please.
Yeah.
Work also.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move back on the agenda. With that, let's talk resolution 1693. which is fallout from our last council meeting. A supportive statement of the community center within the CIP plan as it was approved out of the last council meeting. You have a hard copy before you?
Yep.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, I had just one thing was on section 2, where it says, and a direct appropriation from the state legislature. I wonder if we could say, and direct appropriations from the state legislature and regional partners. Could enumerate them if preferred.
Or just state and local legislatures?
Sure, that's fine.
State local.
Partners may imply beyond that.
Sure.
Although we are looking for additional partners, right? I mean, there might be different groups that would like to donate.
Any other questions or comments? I'll give you mine. I don't believe section 1 and section 2 are consistent with each other. I can see where you say we left it on the CIP, and therefore the council approved the community center expansion, including additional nature measures community center. We left it on there. The statement that really was we would move forward when we have set of options and funding to match. Options mean there may be some change from the full plan. Okay, so I'm still concerned that council's not being heard. Having said that, I'm not going to object if administration wants to take this to council discussion.
Do you have any suggested wording on there?
Take section 1 out. We move forward when we have a set of options and funding to match. But I'm not saying no to taking this to council.
Section 1's intent was to bolster our applications. I believe section 2 captured your statements, but I mean, anything can be changed.
Okay, Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, the from what I gleaned from the representatives from the Y, I think that their concern from what we did would have been like 4 weeks ago to delay, and then at our last council meeting, we kind of clarified what we meant by that a little bit more clearly. But I think the concern was that there could be this appearance that we delayed the project as in putting it on the back burner. We'll come back to it at some point in the future. Whereas saying that we approved it in section 1 makes it more clear that we're saying, yes, we are actively engaged in the project and seeing it move forward. But I guess a question would just be, does this term approved imply to somebody incorrectly that we approved a contract? That I could see as being a concern, but if that is not an assumption that a reasonable person would make from the wording, then I think it's fine the way it is, that we approved for the project to continue moving forward on the CIP. Perhaps another way we could do it is to say approved what are the years 25 to 30 or whatever it is, capital improvement plan, including the community center expansion phase 1. So we're clear about what it was we approved. So someone wouldn't construe it as being that we approved a contract.
So are you suggesting taking out, including the addition of an atrium to the existing community center?
No, I think that'd be fine, to leave in there. Because that's explaining, I think, what the community expansion, sorry, I didn't raise my hand, I recognized.
No, I asked you a question.
Okay.
You're not gonna answer it.
All right. So my interpretation of this was community center expansion phase one and including the addition of is essentially explaining the key piece of the existing community or what is going to be added to the existing community center, which is the natatorium.
Okay, I'm just concerned at no time in our conversation on the CIP did we talk those other options or that it was asked the council have a preference on those options to be included in the CIP. Okay, and nor did we say, we just took what was in the CIP and shifted. And would love to do the full thing, but again, it's based on what funding we can get to do it. And if funding doesn't come through, we're gonna have to look at different options. I believe that's what we said.
On that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so when it says the addition of a natatorium, I don't think that specifies any particular option of what would be in the natatorium. How many tanks? I believe the council's direction was pretty clearly not the last option, only do one tank. So maybe someone could assume that we mean two, but in terms of what's in those two tanks, that is not explicitly stated. For example, the current channel isn't called out, but there weren't any options that didn't include a natatorium.
But I do have a question. So actually a statement. So on section 2, that's where we, come up with this acceptable set of options that's stated there. And so that's where it could be, well, we don't have enough money or we have all the money and we can actually do, no phasing, just do the whole thing. So there you're not necessarily defining which ones, so the set of options, and then funding is secured. And this city will proceed with necessary approvals to commence construction. So that would mean contracts and anything else.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I'm agreeable to Councilmember Johnson's proposed changes to identify the CIP. Does that resolve your concerns?
So restate how you would do section 1.
Yes, section 1 would be the Snoqualmie City Council approves the whatever the right years are, I think it's 25 to 30 or something like that. Capital improvement plan, including the community center expansion phase 1. Perhaps instead of saying including, again, call that with the addition of an auditorium.
And then you do have your necessary.
Okay.
Et cetera.
Sure, it approves the
You're on the fly, aren't you?
2025
We're
to
going on the fly here.
30 CIP. Well, it's really right after approves.
Spell out CIP. would be
Says
like-
approves the 2025-2030 CIP. Including the community center expansion phase 1, including addition of an atrium and just.
And then changing the second including to with.
Yeah.
To including is weird.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm good with that.
And
All right.
I missed that one.
With
Yeah.
instead of including.
Oh, wait. Sorry. I'm caught up.
Instead of including.
Yeah.
Including with.
And then section 2.
I think it said
What I-
state and local legislature.
Yeah.
And regional partners. I would include those because we might get funding from the people we don't mention right now,
Like that?
regional partners.
Local legislature is
The TORS. Towards.
no, I think it'd be you because we want the whole legislative body to approve.
Yeah. and
The
this would
appropriation.
be-
Okay.
Rather than individuals.
Now you're messing with my head.
We would accept that.
Yeah, what is it?
I'm typing one finger here.
Okay.
It's just, okay.
Proceed that on to council. All right, with that, let's move on to Agenda Bill 24077, Council Chambers Audio and Visual Upgrade.
Controls yet, so bear with me.
No, that's, yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Fletcher LaCroix, the fairly new IT director. I'm here with Andy Latham, IT system specialist. And we're going to do a quick presentation about the agenda bill that we present or we're presenting to you. And at the end, we can get your questions and any comments. All right, so here's the history behind this agenda bill. There was some discussion, work done in 2022 to modernize the space, the council chamber space. And, and then there was a budget item thrown in the, I believe, capital or non-capital, forget which one it is exactly, I apologize. And then in June 2023, it was brought to this committee to discuss the proposals that were generated from the vendor selected. And then that feedback was collected from the members and also from the mayor and from Mike. Pretty much these needs were identified. We needed ease of flexibility and ease of use for the staff and public. They wanted a modern hybrid workspace for council for just have it be plug and play. The other reasoning was the equipment is over 15 years old. There was, issues with the equipment itself, hums on the line, issues with, being able to split space up or have meetings without using the mics for staff. And that was the other end was like, we want a hybrid friendly space that need limited support for people to use. They could just come in, look at a tablet, get it set up for their meeting and go. So yeah, as I said, what we're presenting today will meet all of those needs. The modern equipment will make it a lot easier to use. We'll get a clearer projector from the modern equipment, just changing the signaling from what it is now. We'll remove all that blurriness, which will be nice. Also, all the issues identified, like hum of the line, we'll be replacing all the wiring, replacing anything that's running in the background as part of this proposal. The goal is also is to kind of start the process of making it more like have more features in the future. We couldn't make a case with the budget allotment set to, let's say, replace the mics because they still work and the functionality, the cost was versus the benefit of that. I didn't see it being there when I was reviewing this project. Now I can answer questions on that if need be. I think there was some concerns from council at the time said about having their mics controlled by somebody else, which was a functionality of the equipment they proposed in the last meeting. I'm sure it's not something you recall because it's been a while since you guys last met.
I remember it.
Yep. But pretty much that's the basics. I mean, I didn't want to get too deep into the detail with you. Just if there's any questions for us, I brought Andy here today to help answer the technical questions. But as far as the actual proposal, it's something I've seen before in my career when I was pricing it out with the school board. So let me know if you have any questions about our proposal.
I'll start. I have two.
Of course.
How was vendor selected?
So the vendor was selected prior to my arrival, and I checked with them. I think they believe they checked with JMark for pricing. There is an issue with this install. It's a custom install, and you can't really get good contract pricing. So that, yes, you're correct. That's That's something, I do know this vendor. But yes, it was not bid out when I first arrived. And when I looked at it, I knew that was going to be an issue to try to bid it out again to actually get quotes because I'd done it before. And I'd had vendors that did not respond. I had vendors that I requested a quote twice, and the third time they were crickets. So there is some legwork we could do if you'd like, but it's really hard to get vendors to bid on a project this scope.
Okay, but the real issue last time was we had a state approved vendor who didn't quote, but otherwise said, I have options already approved through the state, go look at those. And we didn't.
I was not aware of that.
Okay, so I'm really concerned to how we select vendor here. So please take a look at that. Two, can you go back a couple of slides? Well, I'll just ask. True hybrid space. So hybrid implies I'm taking A and I mix it with B and I get C. What are the A and Bs in the hybrid statement?
The hybrid statement is online versus in person. Those two are mixed together more seamlessly so the user can run you could run a meeting without the need of somebody. It'd be plug in a dongle and you're in the meeting. And we'd have instructions and stuff like that. We'd also have somebody on site still until people felt more comfortable with the equipment. Yes, Mark. Yes, Mike. Sorry.
One of the other, there's actually two. The other is putting the microphones out in the audience to be able to better utilize the room for other than council meetings. So we do staff trainings, we do legislative roundtables, we have Echo Glen meetings where we set up a big square of tables in the middle of the room and we're limited to handing the microphone to person and people online can't hear. So getting those microphones out there that are going to pick up that in a normal conversational tone is also an important part of this design.
Room originally was all designed for in-person meetings for council and committee meetings. And so as you see it was the design, the microphones in the front, it's handhelds. Part of the hybrid edition, what gives it that name is we are eliminating everything that we had to add that wasn't part of order to do hybrid meetings. Those parts weren't designed to have that functionality, and so they're sort of failed over time, resulting in like the hum that you can hear right now with speakers. And so our goal was to eliminate the problems, which would be the PC connections. We're removing that, moving it all into the back of the AV cabinet. Out here, there's going to be a room microphone, kind of like what's over at the fire department. The same company that's doing this setup actually already did the fire department's configuration. So if you'd like to see their work or that room is very close to what this room's capabilities will be. This room will have a few other things with the addition of the cameras. But that room microphone will allow us to have staff meetings and then any other meetings that might get brought up without having to pass around the handheld at all. So yeah. I hope that answers or gets you a little closer to the answer.
It also would pick up everything Andy said for the recording that's going on now that won't be on it because Andy wasn't using the mic.
My voice is loud enough to be picked up by
Yeah, it might be close enough.
Will the microphone that's out in the general area of chambers, can we shut that off independently as well?
Yeah, so the room itself, just to go a little bit into how we planned this, designed it. Council meetings, that microphone will not be turned on. In fact, that'll interfere with these microphones if it is. That's clearly more the secondary use of the rooms, which is pretty frequent for staff meetings.
So you will be able to isolate which microphone should be playing at any given time or not playing, but be on.
We will have more control of the microphones than we have right now. And so I can turn individual microphones on and off inside the control system, including the area microphone. But there's profiles that come up, so that stuff is automated. When I come in here to run a council meeting and I turn the room on for council, that microphone won't turn. That's not part of the profile.
That's helpful. Thank you.
So are we headed on a path where eventually part of the big issues here was that I have to have an IT person sit in the back of this room for every meeting. Are we headed to a path where the meetings will be self-service?
That is the goal, yes. It'd be hard to do right off the bat until staff are trained on how to use the system. And in any system I've ever worked on, with about 400 classrooms and, in public spaces, there's always a hiccup. And I think it's just a training opportunity. And then the hope is to not have staff, IT staff, have to run the meeting for you.
Fletcher, let's go back to the way this was priced and bid. Didn't we attempt to get multiple prices
I
on
believe
this?
so.
And they refused to participate.
Yeah,
So we could not. And then we did talk to the finance director about sole sourcing this. And we did get Drew's concurrence that this was an appropriate sole source project.
and we've lowered the cost significantly with features as well. We had them rebid some of it. There is a labor cost increase, obviously, because that's since it's been a year and labor costs have been going up.
The things with the design as well is that the design, the improvement and fixes to also be expandable without having to spend a lot of extra money. So like we're installing there's not much of a price difference. We're installing like an HDMI switcher that can support additional screens. If we ever decide to deploy those into these rooms, we'll have that capability. So we were thinking about future additions throughout planning the repair of the space.
Mr. Joseph?
Will any of these upgrades make the transition from regular meeting into executive and closed sessions easier and more seamless? We've had issues with what happens with microphones and things and what's being recorded and whatever. Does this make that process easier at all?
As far as that process, there may be some misunderstanding about how stuff works, but when you guys go into executive sessions, we just turn the rhythm off or go based off of the input from the mayor of China, how the meeting should look. If there's been any specific issues during an executive session with microphones turning on and broadcasting, I can find it.
Yes, but the issue is oftentimes we have to report back. You pause the recording, so it appears as if the meeting's still running while we're using the room for executive session, and it's not reassuring to see that information.
Well, if I can add that, I think that portion of it is more of like what we want our meetings to look like. And maybe we can communicate with our communications director about that and formatting. Because that stuff is less on more on the technical room, more than how we decide what people on the other end, what they are.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I think what could be hypothetically an issue is if hypothetically we had a hybrid executive session where there was someone remote and we were having to do communication via Zoom with them. That there could be some audio problems if the mics can't work during a second meeting.
That is a known problem.
So I'm wondering if that can be addressed somehow.
So when we start the second Zoom for that, if the room is still on, we can't communicate through the room's audio system with the person who's online.
Right, so there's a computer that's gonna be controlling the deployment in here, and so what you can do is just the primary council meeting. And I've done that in the past, I've kind of taken that with me on my laptop, and then we joined the executive session with this space to provide use of microphones to communicate with the person in the environment. So I think that a lot of that is more of how are we going to communicate, like maybe there needs to be, just procedures.
So it's more procedural, not a technology issue.
Yeah, it's not a technology
Okay.
issue, it's more of a procedural issue.
Make it so.
So you're keeping that projector?
This projector was purchased not that long ago, and unfortunately, this room didn't have the capability of running a digital signal to it. And so it's running at a considerably lower resolution than what it should be. Hence the kind of fuzzy text and some issues saying small print on the screen. So these are very expensive. This is a laser projector. So what we're going to do is just ensure that there's a proper digital signal at the right resolution running to this projector, so you get the best quality output. If we were to replace this projector, it would be replaced with basically the same technology, and you wouldn't see a difference in the brightness or anything.
The screens from the previous designs were removed per the feedback we received.
Other question?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, the only other question I had was, based on my reading of this, go back to the numbers. So I'm not making things up. Okay. So of the about 7 million, for this and other IT expenditures, 3.7-ish million has been spent, with about 3.3 million remaining. This obviously is much less than 3.3 million. So is there some other project that will consume most of the rest of that? And are we on track for those expenditures?
So there was three other projects that was brought to my attention when I came on board. I've got, next month, I'll have another one for the core network that needs to be taken a look at. And then the next one after that is the firewalls and the Wi-Fi. Those are going to be actually under the cost for your approval, but I'll share the information with you. The core network will be completely replaced. We're actually looking at some cost savings and for that as well. We've already gotten them down $35,000 for that work. So in my opinion, coming into this, I don't think we're going to be able to spend all that money. I'll be honest. It's just 6 months' time to spend $3 million is, unless I've got big chunky projects, then no. We will, though. I think the city was, it's hard to say this opinion. Based on my impressions for the first few months, there's some systems that are overbuilt. But and there was not a lot of effort, at least there was not a lot of time and effort being available to spin down everything that was done pre-COVID. And the assumption was they were going to continue the same process they had pre-COVID, which we are not doing. We all have laptops now. We are all more mobile, and having stuff on site is not needed. So I am still reviewing those items, Councilor Johnson. It's just, it is quite a bit to spend in 6 months.
Thank you.
Okay, but it's not, well, never mind. I'm not gonna go. Okay, the only other thing I ask is that I get to see your logic on selecting a sole source. Okay, just because we had issues, you don't need to do it now. Send it to me in an email. I just because we had that question before, I want to make sure we got ducks in the row moving forward. Okay, and go from there. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, with that, we'll move that one on to council.
This is very exciting. After a couple of years. Way to go, Fletcher and Andy.
You can turn the hum down now. I know you guys
Yeah.
turned it up a few weeks ago.
I wish I did.
With that, we'll move off to, we have no other discussion items. We'll move off to review of draft city agenda. Chair has a couple of changes from what is presented here. We'll start the roundtable at 6:30. And the subject for that roundtable will be reclaimed water reservoir improvement project update. Okay, and that will come off of the agenda under Parks and Public Works. Okay. From there, we'll move into the 7 o'clock agenda. Call to order roll, pledge of allegiance, agenda approval, public hearing presentations. Public hearing appointments, we'll have a fire badge pinning for firefighter Tyler Bird and ceremonial oath of office, police officer William Natka and Kobe Hula. I'm sorry if I butchered names. And after that, public comment. From there, consent agenda will consist of city council meeting minutes, July 8th, approval of claims report, July 22nd, and move into ordinances. Now, in the section of ordinances, was that where the resolution would go? No, that'll go down. Okay. From there, we'll move into committee reports, public safety authorization to purchase police department vehicle. Community development currently has no items put forward. Parks and Public Works, we move that item up under the workshop. Finance and Administration would like to put at the top of that sub-agenda, Resolution 1693, which was the resolution to the non-utility CIP. And then we'll move to Agenda Bill 24077, City Council Chambers Audio Video Equipment. I guess question at that stage though. Should we move the collective bargaining agreement ahead of audiovisual equipment? I think the police would appreciate if we thought of them first. Projector. Can we swap the order of those, please? Let's do Snoqualmie Police Association after the resolution, and then we'll do the audio visual upgrade. Committee of the whole, mayor's report. Committee liaison reports. And I guess we will have a closed or executive session.
The close is there if we need it,
Okay.
and the executive, yes.
Okay, any other comments or revisions?
No, not that.
What did she's
Oh,
circling?
nothing about this.
Whenever I get a circle on a piece of paper, I'm missing something. What was it?
But we do need to talk about some upcoming special meetings.
Do you want to have that as a discussion under committee of the whole?
Nope.
Oh, no. Okay, this was just, all right.
Good.
Alright.
So we're done with the agenda.
Yeah.
Agenda's
We're
set up.
done with the agenda. Let's hear objections. No objections with those revisions. The agenda is approved.
So on the biennial budget calendar, we on September 3rd and 4th, which is our normal committee week, we are having special meetings, committees of the whole. So the regular committees will be canceled. And it's on the Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, then we would have committee of the whole meetings to review a variety of things about the budget listed on the calendar. So these would be about 3 hours each. So it would be 2 days in a row. And we're just kind of wondering what time we could start that.
5 o'clock, 5:30. Does that work with
That
Rick's
work for you?
schedule?
What were the dates one more time?
It would be Tuesday, September 3rd and Wednesday, September 4th.
I'd have to be an hour late.
Waiter's a bit better than me as well.
What? 6 o'clock?
6
Do
o'clock. Okay?
6.
6. All right.
Okay, and then the next one is that, so then we would have our regular council meetings on September 9th and the 23rd. So there will be roundtables on those. And then September 30th, Monday is a 5th Monday. So of course we wouldn't have anything normally, but on the calendar, we are having a special budget workshop to review the final budget, including a public hearing. And then the following Thursday on the calendar is October 3rd would be the special budget workshop for the proposed adoption of the budget with a public hearing. So I'll need to publish those in the newspaper. And so I'm just kind of wondering what time we could start those, because it needs to be in the publication notice.
Sounds like 6 o'clock.
Okay.
On that one, the initial set of meetings we talked about, in lieu of committee meetings. We do probably still need to have 30 minutes at the end of probably the last one to set council agenda.
Well, I think we'll probably do that in August. Because we're gonna have our council committee meetings and then following council meeting was canceled, right?
Right,
So
so
we'll just carry that forward.
at the FNA on August 20th, we would be reviewing the agenda for September 9th.
Okay.
I will not be here.
No.
Do that?
What
Okay.
was that?
I said I will not be here.
That's why there's 7 of us.
Yep.
And you gotta trust the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Okay, 6 o'clock it is.
All right.
Keep it consistent. Thank you.
Any other items to come before the committee? All right, if not, unless there are objections, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.